Hi guys, I hope you're well today. So today we're going, sorry, we are going to be looking at randomization and also Python lists. And randomization is a concept that we almost interact with on a daily basis. Yeah. So you can think of a random occurrence, like if you spill your cup of coffee, that spill can bounce in any direction. Yeah, so that's a random scenario. If you spray paint on a canvas, that's a random scenario. But in more practical explanation is when you're interacting with some games, like for instance the Pong game, the snake game, or any other game that involves some sort of uncertainty or some sort of unpredictability. Yeah. So you can imagine how boring it would be if you're playing a snake game and you always know where the foot of the snake will be, or the Pong game and you know where the ball is going to bounce to. Yeah, that could be really boring. Yeah, but it's that uncertainty or that unpredictability that makes the games enjoyable. Okay. So we can implement randomization in Python using the Python module. And check more about the Python module, we're going to look at the Python documentation. And before we even proceed, I hope you guys have downloaded the note because I know I've sent them really late. So let me just give you a minute. You download the notes. For those who have not downloaded, then we proceed. You can go to GitHub, fetch the notes from GitHub. You can download them. You can clone the repository. You can pull the notes from the repository, whichever works for you. I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, I hope you're good now. I hope you've downloaded the notes on your machine. So we said that we're going to be using the random module from Python to implement randomization. Yeah, and this is the documentation for the random module. I'm going to drop these on the chart. And with the random module, you can generate anything from random numbers to selecting random values from, let's say, a list or a collection of items, random floats. Yeah, there's a lot you can do with the methods in the random module. Yeah, like we have this one method called randint. Yeah, and randint returns a random integer given a certain range or certain boundaries. Yeah, like if you wanted to generate let's say a random number between 2 and 10, and it's an integer, so you're going to use the randint method from the random module. Then you're going to pass in 2 and 10. So this method is going to generate as a random integer from 2 to 10, and that includes both 2 and 10. But we have another method called the randrange, which does almost the same thing as the rand integer or the randint, but the randrange, if we say we wanted a random integer between 2 and 10, it will return a random number between 2 and 10, but not including 10. Yeah, not included. The number that you specify as the larger number or the end of the range is not returned as part of the random numbers that will be generated. But for the randint, it will include any value between 2 and 10, including 5. Yeah, but for the randrange, it will not. The randint will generate a random number between 2 and 10, including 10. Yeah, but for the randrange, it will generate any random number between 2 and 10, but not including 10. 10 will not be included. So it can generate 3, 4, 5, all to 9, but it will not include 10. But for this one, it can generate any number 2 or
African Data School barimo bariga programming.
Guys, if you're not using your mic, please just keep your mics on mute. If you're not using your mic, why don't you just keep your mic on mute kindly? So what was I saying? I was saying that the randint method will return values from 2 all the way to 10. It can be any number between that range. But for the randrange, it will return all values between the first value and the last, but not including the last. That's why you have a 9 here instead of 10. Yeah, it will not include 10. We have other methods like the choice. The choice method can select a random value or a random item from a sequence or a collection. It could be a list, it could be a set, it could be a tuple. So you can select a random item from a collection or a sequence using the choice method. Or even choices. We have the choices method, which will now select a certain number of elements from a sequence or from a population or from a collection. We have the shuffle, the sample. and the random, but we're going to look at the rand int first. And the rand int method, we've said that it will return a number between the first value and the second one. That second one will be included. And here we are creating a new variable called rand int, and we're assigning it to random.rand int. Then we want a random integer between 1 and 10. And remember to import random. So random comes with a standard Python library, so you don't need to install it. So you just need to import it. Yeah, you just import it in your project and start using it. You can see now we have a new random number. And every time we run that cell, it's going to generate a new random value. And I want it to get to 10. You can see here we have 10. Yeah, that's because the rand int method includes the last number that is being specified. But for the random rand range, that's almost the same thing as the rand int, but it will not return the last value that you specified when you're calling that rand range method. So for this one, it will generate any random number between 1 and 10, but not including 10. So I'm going to run this. And no matter how many times you run it, you'll never see a 10. Yeah. You can see we have a 9 now. But if you change this to 9, that 9 will not be included in the random numbers that will be generated. So we will no longer have a 9 in our random integers. Yeah. And you're probably wondering what is a module. And a module is basically, for the last 3 classes that we've been, is it 3 or 2? The last 2 classes, we've been writing code on a single script or a single file. And most of the time, if you have a big project that is not scalable, and it's not even advisable, because if you make a mistake somewhere, it will take you long hours of finding out where the problem is. Yeah. So what is advised is you break down your code into different files, and then you import those different files into the main project. Yeah. So that if you have a certain an error somewhere, then you know where that error or which file that error comes from, and then you can go to that file and correct or debug your code. You can think of it as module. You can think of modules as when a car manufacturing company is creating a car or building a car, and the car rolls into the assembly line. So with maybe the skeleton, yeah, and then different sections of the assembly line will add different modules to that car. Yeah, we have those guys who will input the chassis. Then we have those who will work on the dashboard and the steerings. We have the engine module, or there are guys along the assembly line that will input the engine and the transmission. Then we have the guys who will put in the wheels. We have the paint shop where the car will be given its color. Yeah. So you can think of a module as such a thing. Yeah. And all those sections of the assembly line will come together to produce a car. Yeah. So the same thing goes for modules. If you're building a really large project, then you break down your project into different modules, each module doing a certain job on your project. And then you bring them together to form your main project. And this is done by importing different modules on the project. Yeah. Like if we went here in our file, in our folder, the Python list and randomization class, going to that folder. Then I'll go here and I'll create a new file, a new Python file. So I'm going to say touch main.py. Now we have a main.py here. So I'm going here and I'll open it and write some code inside that main.py. So we're going to say, just going to create a variable called pi. Yeah. And pi is equals to 3.14 something something. I don't remember the other figures.
142.
Yeah, somebody said 142, something like that. Yeah. So once we save that, we can come back to our project now and import that file. Yeah. We can import that file as a module. And basically a module, you import a module using the name itself. You don't include the .py extension. So if we were to import that main.py module, we're going to, let me insert a new cell here. So you're going to say import main. And then if we want to print the value of pi inside that main module, we're going to say print main.py, because there's a pi variable inside that file, and it should print 3.142. If we come here and change this to pi is equals to 22 divided by 7 and save that. And if we come back here and reload, I think we should get the same value. Okay, let's change the, let's assume pi is something else, like 7,800, 7.8887, whatever that number, 7.87373. So you can save that and come back here and reload. It should be working. 2 divided by 7. And now you can see the value of pi has changed, because this, whatever we were imputing here for pi has changed as well. Now we are having 22 divided by 7, which is 3.142, and these many other numbers here. Yeah, so that's how a module works in Python. Basically a file. Yeah, so if you are building, let's say, a website, you're building a website using Python Flask module. Yeah, and you have different components of that website. So instead of coding everything on the same file, so you can break it down into different sections or different modules. Let's say we have the module that will serve the routes. Then we have another module, let's say for forms, if you have forms in your application. Then you can have another one for database models. Yeah, and then you have the main part of the project, or the main file that will now run the project. Yeah, and from this, now from the main, or the file that is going to run the project, or the one that is going to initialize the project, you're going to import all these other files, all these other modules to this file. And and this is the file that now will render everything to the browser. Yeah. If it's a web application. Okay. So instead of writing all these code here for the routes, for the forms, and for the models on this same file, you break it down into different modules, and then you import those modules into the main file that is going to run that project. And that module now, that main file is going to import everything from these other modules and render your site or your web application on the browser. Someone is asking you guys to mute. Everyone is muted. I think the noise is on my end. My neighbor's kid is shouting around, so sorry about that. Okay, so then we can also generate random floating point numbers like decimal numbers using the random method from the random module. So there is the random module itself, and inside that random module, we have a random method, and it's somewhere down here, I think. This one here. We have the random method from the random module. And this is used for generating decimal numbers, and it will generate a decimal value starting from 0.00 to 1.0, but not including 1.0. So it will return basically values from 0 to 0.99999. Yeah. And to do that, we're going to say random. We've already imported the random module. Let me rerun it. And then random.random. Then we assign that to a random float, and then we print it out. And you can see it's a random number. So, and it's a number between 0.0 all the way to 0.1, sorry, all the way to 1.0, but not including 1.0. So its values from 0.0 to 0.99999. Yeah, and every time we run it, you see it's giving us a different number every time, a different random float. Okay, so here's a question for you. We've seen how you can get a random integer, how you can get a random float. Here's a question for you. And this random method from the random module returns values between 0.0 and 0.999. So if we wanted to generate a random float between 0 and 10, how do we go about it? That's a question for you. How can we generate a random float between 0 and 10, sorry, between 0 and 10, given that this method will give us values or random figures between random floats between 0 and 0.999. So how do we generate a random float between 0 and 10? Think about it, give it a second, then let me know on the chat. Okay, guys, let me know in the chat, how do we generate a random? If you've already downloaded your notes, you can try and test it on your notebook. Yeah, or if you have any notebook open, just try and see how you can implement that. Yeah, someone is saying we can use the uniform method. Yeah, that's true. But we've not looked at the uniform method yet. Yeah, how can we implement that using the random method that we've looked at? But that's a good try. Looking at the documentation, yeah. Someone looked at the documentation and came up with the answer. Yes, there's this method random.uniform, and it will return a random floating point number between the values that you've specified. But how can we, this involves a little bit of thinking. How can we implement that using the random method without using the uniform? No one is giving me no one is giving it a try. Just no answer is there's no wrong answer. Just give it a try. Give it a shot. And remember, the random method will give us a random float between 0.0 and 1.0, but not including 1.0. So if we wanted to generate a random float from between 0 and 10, we just take that random float. We generate a random float using the random method, and then we multiply that by 10. Yeah. So if we were to say rand, let's call it rand. So it's random dot random, then times 10. So any value that is generated between 0.0 and 0.999 will be multiplied by 10. Then we can print it. You see, these are numbers between 0 and 10. Okay. So that's how you can do it. But you can also follow you can also use this method, the uniform method. But I wanted to see, I wanted you to like brainstorm a little bit about how you can implement it the long way. Okay, there are other methods in the random module that we are not going to look at today. So anytime you need to use them, you can always refer to the documentation, like the choice. Yeah, if you had a sequence or a collection of items in a list or a tuple, and you wanted to select each item at random, then you can use the choice. Yeah, if you wanted to select to sample out a section of a sequence or a collection, you can use the sample. If you wanted to shuffle out, you can use the shuffle method. and many more other methods in the random module. But choice is very important. You should look at the choice and the choices, but mostly the choice. Because in the next project that you're going to, because for the project that you're going to be creating, or the exercise that you're going to be working on for today's class, will be based on the choice module. So you can look at it later. I'm leaving that out deliberately because I want to see if you guys can read the documentation and try to implement what is in the documentation. So I'll not explain the choice module, right? The choice method right now. I'll do that in the walkthrough for today's exercise. Okay. So if now you can head out to coding rooms and go to there's an exercise on randomization on coding rooms. So you can go there and exercise that or work on that assignment. We have these coin toss. I have not assigned it. Let me assign it so that you can view it. I'm going to release it. Okay, so now you can see it on your side. And basically what you want to do, we want to simulate a coin toss. Assuming you want to toss a coin for some reason, and you and your friend want to toss a coin, and at that particular moment you don't have a coin. So you can go to your computer and write up a small program that will simulate a coin toss. Yeah. So that's what we want to create right now. So we want to write a program that simulates a coin toss. It will randomly return heads or tails. Yeah. So don't worry too much about this note and whatever, because I've not set up a test for this, because every time you run it, it will generate a different result. So I could not set up a test for it because your results will be different from mine. You guys, why don't you just keep your mics on mute, please? Now we have someone singing for us while we're in class. Okay, so go to coding rooms and try work out that assignment. And you're not going to test this one, right? I'm just going to give you 5 minutes, then I'll come back and we'll work it out together. So you don't need to submit it. Just look at the requirements and try to implement it using the random module. Hi guys, how is the exercise? Were you able to finish? Can you see my screen? I think I've lost my. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, so were you guys able to finish the exercise? Okay, then. So for those who are not able, or if we were all able to finish the exercise, let's just go through it together. So we asked to create a program that simulates a coin toss using the random module. So for the coin side, you're going to create a new variable called coin side. And this is a random integer, random.rand int between 0 and 1. So, and we are going to say if coin side is equals to 0, and we're going to print heads. Else, we're going to print tails, like that. Yeah, so let's run. You can see we have tails. You can run again. Heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, like that. And we have successfully simulated a coin toss. So next time you and your friends need to toss a coin and you don't have a coin in your pocket, but you have a computer, you can simulate a coin toss very fast and toss your coins away. Okay. All right. So next, we're going to look at Python lists. And this is Python lists are part of Python data structures. It's because I wanted to make this class short. so that you guys can have time to practice. And also, I didn't want to ambush you with a lot of information at once. So we're going to start with Python lists. Then next time we're going to look at dictionaries. So today we're looking at lists and a little bit of tuples, which are quite similar to Python lists. The only difference is how they are created and the methods that you cannot apply on a tuple. So next time we're going to look at Python dictionaries and sets. So let's start today with Python lists. And Python lists, or a list in general, is a collection of items in a particular order. So you can think of a list. Practically, most of us go for shopping. So when you go to shopping, if you're on a budget like me, you need to create a list of essentials. So you take a pen and paper and write down the items that you're going to buy from the supermarket. Yeah. So basically, that is a list. Yeah. The only difference from that list that you create when you go for shopping, and the only difference between the list that you write down when you go for shopping and a Python list is how they are created. Yeah. For your list, for your shopping list, you take a pen and paper and you write it down. For Python, there are some rules to declaring a Python list. And in a Python list, you can put anything into the list. And the items in the list don't have to be related in any way. So you can have a list of numbers mixed with strings, mixed with booleans. So the Python list does not discriminate. Yeah, it accommodates everybody, unlike Python arrays, which I'm going to look at later. A Python array is quite similar to a Python list. The only difference is, or the main difference is, it stores only one data type. If it's a string, it's a string. If it's a integers, it's integers. If it's floats, it's floats. You cannot mix them up. You cannot have one element as a string, another one as an integer, another one as a float, another one as a boolean. You cannot do that in a Python array. But in a Python list, you can do that. And in Python, lists are created using square brackets. And every item or every element in a list is separated by a comma. Yeah, we have this example here. We have created a new variable called cars, and that cars, we have assigned it to a list of cars. Yeah, and since these lists are strings, we need to these items in the list are strings. We need to enclose them inside quotation marks, and every item is separated by a comma. You can see we have Audi, then comma, BMW, comma, Mercedes, comma, Nissan, comma, Jeep, comma, Lexus, comma, Volvo, comma. But in the last item, you can either add a comma or not. Doesn't really matter because there's no item coming after that. And now you can print out your list. And you see here we have all the items in our list printed out. Yeah. And since now we have a collection of items, sometimes it's necessary to get hold of some items or an item from that list. And now we're going to look at how you can access items in a list. So list, remember we defined the list as a collection of items in a particular order. So Python lists have an order. They are ordered, yeah? But they are ordered starting from 0, yeah? And those values or those orders are called indices. So the first item in a list has the index of 0. The second one has the index of 1 all the way to the end. And to get hold of a single item in the list, you need to use the index of that item. Like if you wanted to get hold of the first item, remember we've said that it starts from 0. index starts from 0. So that means the first value here is the index of 0. So we're going to get hold of the list, then square brackets, and then enclosed inside the square brackets is the index of the item that you want to access from the list. So the first item here, Audi, has the index of 0. So we're going to get the cars list, then square brackets, and then inside the square brackets, we're going to put an index of 0 there. And if when we run that, you see we have Audi. If we change these to something else like 3 or 4, then you get Jeep. That's because Audi is 0, BMW is 1, Mercedes is 2, Nissan is 3, and Jeep is 4. And you can perform, you can also use string methods on the items that you've selected from the list. So if you wanted to convert these name Mercedes into uppercase, then you can use the uppercase method, string method. So going first to access the Mercedes value, which has the index of 2, 0, 1, 2. And that's Mercedes. So if you want to turn this into uppercase, you're going to use .upper and then convert this text to uppercase. You can also access elements in the list using the negative index. And negative index starts from -1. And it's something like this. So I'm going to clear these out. So let's say we have a list of items in a list. So you have this, you have that, that, and that. And let's say these are countries. So we have, I'm very patriotic, so I start with my own country. So you have Kenya, we have Tanzania, Uganda, Nigeria. I hope that's how you abbreviate Nigeria. Then we have Ghana. And maybe we have South Africa. So this is a list, assuming that is a list. Yeah, and each item in this list, since a list is ordered, it has its own index. So so this is a list. Then we will have the index. So the first item in our list has the index of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these are indices. Yeah, so for the negative index, we're going to do this. And then we start from the last. This being -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. And these are negative index. Okay, so if you wanted to access this item Uganda using a negative index, you simply say the list, assuming our list was called countries. So let's say these are countries. Our list, we called it countries. So if you wanted to get the country Uganda, so you're going to say countries. Then our square brackets, and then -3. So you can use its index, its actual index, or its negative or index. Yeah. For, let's say, Uganda. Sorry, not. This is Nigeria. I don't know why I said Uganda. This is Nigeria. So if you wanted to get Nigeria using the negative index, we use -3, and these will return NG. If you wanted to get something like Uganda, I'm going to say countries. -4. These will return UG, which can also be countries. And then we get its actual index of 2. So those two methods will give you the same results. So assuming we have this list of items, let me know in the chat, how do you access the Lexus value using the negative index? We have our list called cars, and we want to get the value of Lexus using its negative index. Cars -3, yeah, that's correct. Okay, so let's move on and look at slicing lists. Yes, cars -3, that's correct. That's how you can access that value. So you can also look at list slices or slicing of lists. And this is when we want to get hold of a particular section of a list. Let's go back to a list here. Let's say we wanted to get a section of our list from, let's say we wanted to get East African countries, and they're represented by these indices. So we want to get this section of the our list. So this can also be referred to as a slice. It's a section of the entire list. So if we want to access a section of a list or do list slicing, then we're going to use the slicing operator, which is basically a colon. So you're going to get the value of the first index of our slice and the last index. So if we wanted to get these 3 values, we would say countries, then square brackets, then we want to get the items from index 0, then colon, then index 2. But if we put index 2 here, it will return the first two values, these ones, but we want the first three. So we need to have the index of 3. So this method here, the slice operator, will return the value or the value in the first index all the way to the value in the last index, but not including the last index. Like here you see the last index is 3, but this method will actually return these 3 values from index 0 to index 2. Yeah, that's because this last value here will not be included in the items that will be returned in the slice. So it's always good to note that. So if you wanted to get in our list of cars, if you wanted to get item 2 all the way to item 5, sorry, item from index 2 all the way to index 5, then it's going to return these 3 items, which are Mercedes, Nissan, and Jeep. And if you look at our list, Mercedes has the index of 2, Jeep has the index of, sorry, Nissan has the index of 4, and Jeep has the index of, what am I saying? Mercedes has the index of 2, Nissan has the index of 3, Jeep has the index of 4. But here we passed in 5, so 5 is not being included. If we wanted to get the 5th, the item with the index of 5, then we're going to have a 6 here instead of 5. 6 like that. And if we run this, then we are going to include the item with that index 5. So note that for a list slice, let me clear these out. If you wanted, let's say, to get items from index X to Y, then in your selector, in your slice operator, you need to include index of X colon, then index Y plus 1. If you wanted the Y to be included. So if here in our list, if we wanted to include the index of 3, then we need to go all the way to 4 so that the index of 3 will be included. There's another way of slicing a list. Let's say we want to get the first, from the first item in our list all the way to a certain index, then we can use this method. So you say cars, then square brackets, and then inside the square brackets we have the index, we have the column, and then the final index. And it's also worth noting that this method will return items from the first index, which is index 0, all the way to index 4, but not including index 4. Yeah. So remember, in our list again, go back to our list, we have index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Jeep is our index 4. Yeah. So in this method here, if we do this, it will return all the items in that list from index 0 to index 4, but not including index 4. So it will return values from index 0 to index 3. So if you wanted to get the value at index 4, then you need to increase these to 5. And now we have the Jeep. Yeah. And then we have the inverse of this, whereby now we have the index first and then the colon lay after the number, the index. So this means that return all the values from this index to the end. Yeah, from index 5 all the way to the end. Yeah, and this will include this first index that you specified, unlike this other method here, which is returning all items from the start to a certain index. So this, in this method, the index that you pass here will not be included, but in this method, it will be included because it's starting from that all the way to the end. So if we change this to 4, so remember we said the index of 4 is our Jeep. So this should return from Jeep all the way to the end, which is Land Rover. And that's what we get. So here's a question for you. What do you think this method will return? Cars, square brackets, -5, column. And this other one. So give me the answers for these two. Let me know in the chat, what will be the result of that operation, of that slice operation? Both of them actually. Phase 1 and this one. And we have our list here. Let me bring it down so that you can see it. So I'm just going to print cars. So here's the list. So what will this operation return? Yeah, correct. So this method here, it will start from the index -5, which is starting from using negatives, we start from -1. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So it will start from Nissan here all the way to the end, which is Land Rover here. For this other method, it will start, sorry, I've not seen answers for this one. Yeah, and the reason why it will return that is because we want to return all the values from the start to index -4, but not including index -4. So index -4 is -1, -2, -3, -4, which is Jeep. So we want to return all the values from the start all the way to index of -4, but not including -4. So it will return Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and Nissan. Awesome. So next we look at the list methods. And these are some of the methods or operations that you can perform on lists. One of them being the append method. And the append method adds an item to the very end of your list. Yeah. So back to our dummy list here. If we wanted to add an item here to our list, we can just use the append method. So let me clear these out so that we are just left with our list. So if we wanted to add an item to our list, so you can say our list of countries dot append. And maybe we want to append Senegal. Let's say Senegal is abbreviated like that. I hope so. So this is going to append this value of Senegal to the end of our list here, SN. And now if we look at the negative indices, now the Senegal will be the one with the index of -1. Then we'll go all the way back to the end. So basically that's the append. If you want to add an item to a list, just use the append method. And this is the syntax for the append. List.append, then the value that you want to append. And this is a good example of that. We want to append in our list of cars here. We only have the last item here is the Land Rover. So if we want to append a new vehicle manufacturer here, let's say Volkswagen, so we're going to say cars.append. Then the value that we want to append to our list is Volkswagen. Then we print that out, and now you see we have Volkswagen at the end after Land Rover, which was the last item in our list initially. But what if now you don't want to append your item just to the very end of the list? What if you want to append it or to add it at a specific index? Yeah. So for that case, we're going to use a new method called insert. And it takes 2 arguments, the insert method takes 2 arguments, one of them being the position where you want to insert that item, and the second one being the item itself. So let's say, remember our indices here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's say we want to insert our item at index 3 here. Yeah, so we're going to say countries dot insert. Then we're going to insert at index of 3. And the value that we want to insert is, give me a country, Ethiopia. Let's say Ethiopia is, in short, is written as 80. Yeah. So if we do that, so this is the index where we want to insert that value, and this is the value that we want to insert. So we'll end up with a new list that looks like this. Yeah, so we have Kenya here, Tanzania, Uganda. But now instead of index 3, let me just add the indices real fast. Okay. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now at index 3, instead of having Nigeria, we're going to have Ethiopia here. Yeah, and then Nigeria will be pushed to index 4. So you have NG, GH, SA, and SN. Okay, this is not necessary. Like that, yeah. And now we've inserted this value at index 3. So that's how the insert method works. So let's say in our cars list here, we want to insert a new car manufacturer Peugeot at index 2. So we're going to say cars.insert index 2, then the value which is Peugeot. Then we run that, and now you see initially we had Mercedes at index 2, but now if we look at the new list, we have the Peugeot at index 2, which is the third item in our list, and Mercedes has been pushed to index 3, sorry. We also have the index method, and the index method is used to get the index of a particular item in the list. So let's say we want to get, let's say we have a list that we want to know the index of, let's say Nigeria in our data, in our list, sorry. So I'm going to say countries dot index and then the index of the value of that, the value that we want to get the index for, which is ng. And this method should return 4, which is the index of Nigeria in our list. So in our cars, Nissan has the index of 4 because if we start 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. We also have another list method called pop, and pop returns an item, returns and removes an item from a list. It does two things. First, it will return that item, and it will also remove it from the list. Okay, so if you wanted to remove an item from the list using its index, and then you wanted to get hold of that item that you've removed and maybe use it in something else, then you can do that using the pop method. So let's say you've not noticed something unique about our cars here. Most of these models are European made, except the Nissan. So let's say we wanted now to remove the Nissan with its index of 4. So we're going to say cars.pop, then index of 4. Then we're going to assign the value that we've popped from the list, of the value that we've removed from the list. We're going to assign it to a new variable called remove car. And then we can even use it in a statement like this. The car is not European made, like that. And you can see we have now Nissan is not European made. And if we look at our list of cars, if we print it out, Nissan will not be there. It has already been removed, but we've gotten hold of that value, of its value. And we have assigned that value to a new variable, and we can use that variable in something else. So if we print out and we run this, now you see we don't have the Nissan. And if you check the value of index 4 now, it's a different item, it's Jeep. Initially it was Nissan index 4. Yeah, you can see the index. Okay. Then we also have another method called remove, and this does remove the value using the name of that value or that element. So if we wanted to remove something like the Volvo, or the Lexus, The Lexus is also not European made because it's made by Toyota. So let's remove the Lexus as well. We are not discriminating against Japanese cars though. We're just coding. Okay. So if we remove the Lexus, and print out our list of cars, now we don't have the Lexus. And the only difference between these and the pop method is that you cannot assign these to a variable, even if you wanted to. It's going to give you an error. So if you say, let's say, let's give it a variable of CR. And try to remove Volvo. Just give me a minute. I rerun these again because I've removed all those items. It's going to cause problems. Let's now remove the Lexus again and print out our new variable. See, it's none. Yeah, because it was not assigned. Like this method cannot assign the value that you've removed to this new variable. Yeah, but the pop method can. The remove method does not take the index. It takes the value that you want to remove. The pop method takes the index. But if you don't specify the index, I think it's going to remove the last item from the list. So this is optional. Yeah, if we remove that, it's still going to work, but this time it has removed the last item, which was Volkswagen. So we've looked at the remove. You can also look at the delete. So let's just remove these. Then the delete. It will also delete an item using its index. So instead of using the remove, if you don't want to get hold of the item that you're removing, then you can use the remove if you want to use its name, but you can also use the delete if you want to use the name, the index of that item that you want to remove. So we said del, then cars, then the index of that car that you want to remove, which in this case you want to remove the last index, which is Land Rover. And if we print it out now, you can see we don't have Land Rover anymore. It has already been removed. Finally, we have this other method called extend, and extend adds all elements of a list to another list. Let's say we have our original cars list here. We have Audi, BMW, Peugeot, Mercedes, Nissan, and Jeep, and also Volvo. We didn't remove our Nissan here. This is index of 4. So I need to remove that. So I'm going to rerun these again. And now we have our lists: Audi, BMW, Peugeot, Mercedes, Jeep, Volvo, and Land Rover. Yeah, and then we have these other lists that we've created here for Japanese cars. Yeah, you can even add a Nissan here. I like Nissan. Yeah, so if you wanted to to get these items in the Japanese car list and then add them to our cars list, then we're going to use the extend method. So we're going to say cars dot extend, then we want to extend the cars list using the list of Japanese cars or Japan cars. Then we're going to print that out, and you see now we have all these. Yeah, which is a combination of these two. Or you can even use the addition sign; it will still do the same thing. If we insert here like this and say all cars is equals to cars plus Japan cars, and then we print out all cars. Yeah, this is not working, and I think you can already tell why, because these cars variable here, or we had already run that, and now this cars variable includes all these cars. Yeah, so for this method to work, we'll need to run these again here. Now skip the extend and come down here, and you see we have the same thing. You can use the addition and you can use the extend, but I prefer using the extend. It's more scalable compared to these. There are other methods that we've not looked at, but you can look at the ones that we've looked at are the most important or the most commonly used methods in lists. But even these others, you can use them. That doesn't mean they are not used. Yeah, but most of the time you'll not be using them. The reverse, if you wanted to reverse the order of items in your list. So let me just create a new cell here, and we have our cars. So if you wanted to reverse this list and start, instead of starting with Audi, we start with Land Rovers, then we're going to say list.reverse. We can print it out. Okay. Don't know why it's not working. It should be working. Cars.reverse. Yeah. Now our cars list has been reversed. Initially, it was starting with Audi, blah blah blah, but now it has been reversed. And if we do this, should not assign it to a new variable. So if we say now we print cars, so we have the list ordered well in its original ordering, but if we run these again, you see it has been reversed. Yeah, we have the sort method, which sorts the items in a list in ascending order based on the alphabetical order. Then the copy, if you wanted to create a copy of a list, you can do that using the copy method. Sometimes you don't want like to manipulate your original list. Yeah, so you can keep a copy, you can create a copy of the original list and then work or manipulate the copy. Then the clear removes everything from the list. The count returns the count of the number of items in the list, or you can also use the len method. If you wanted to get the number of items, use the len like that. The number of items is 7 in that list. But the count does something different. If you wanted to get the number of a particular item in a list, let's say in our cars, you wanted to count the number of jeeps, for instance. So you're going to say cars dot count. Then we want to count jeep, and jeep is 1. Okay. So that's the count method. So those are the main methods in Python lists that you'll be working with. Then finally, we look briefly at tuples, and tuples are basically almost the same as lists. There are only 2 differences: how they are created. The tuples are created using the normal parentheses or the brackets, and every item in the tuple is separated by a comma, just as with the lists. So that's the main the difference in syntax between the list and the tuple. So the main difference, or the fundamental difference between the two, is that the tuple is immutable. Yeah, that means all the elements, that means the elements in a tuple cannot be changed once they've been assigned. Yeah, but if the element itself is a mutable data type like a list, it can be changed. Yeah, but the tuple itself cannot be changed. You cannot pop, you cannot remove, you cannot append, you cannot add, you cannot do anything, you cannot change it. Yeah. And this is mostly used for those items that you do not want to change at all in your collection or in your sequence. Okay. Let's say you're creating a program that calculates some values based on the gravitational force and a few other constants. Yeah. So instead of, if you wanted to store those in a list, those values do not need to change because the gravitational force will never change, unless maybe if the world is coming to an end. So those constants or those values that you never want to change, those are the values that are stored in a tuple. Okay, and you can try to change a tuple here, and you're going to get an error, which is a type error. So you have these tuple called bikes. We have the Kawasaki, Honda, Yamaha, and Suzuki. So let's try and add the Harley Davidson to that tuple of bikes at index 0. By the way, you can do this even with lists. This will replace the value at that index. So if we do this, we're going to run into this type error, and simple object does not support item assignment. But if you are to do with this with cars, and we give it the value of Haley, then we print cars. Now you see our cars At the very start, we have the Harley Davidson, and it has replaced our first item in our cars, which was, in this case, it was Land Rover because the list has been reversed, had been reversed. So Land Rover was the first item, and it was replaced with Harley Davidson. Yeah, but if we try the same for a tuple, it's not going to work because a tuple is immutable. It cannot be changed, or it cannot, the values that have been assigned to a tuple cannot be changed. If you want to change them, you need to convert the tuple into a list and then change them. Okay. So, but anything else apart from that, whatever you do on a tuple, you can do the same on a list, or whatever you do on a list, you can do it on a tuple. Like if we wanted to get the first value of bikes, we just use the index. If we wanted to slice from index 0 to index 2, that's the same thing. Yeah, so anything that you perform on that list data structure, you can also perform it on a tuple, but you cannot change a tuple. You cannot change the values in a tuple, or you cannot even add a value in a tuple. Okay, so that's it for today, guys, unless you have questions. One more thing is that we have a project, and the project is simply to create, I'm just going to type it here. I'm going to create a rock, paper, scissors game. Rock, paper, scissors. I hope you played this game. It's a game of chance, I think. You can look more into it from Wikipedia. Rock, paper, scissors. So you can look at the description of the rock, paper, scissors from Wikipedia. So rock, paper, scissors is a hand game usually played between two people, in which each player simultaneously forms one of three shapes with an outstretched hand. These shapes are rock, which is shown by a closed fist, paper, flat hand, and scissors, a fist with the index finger and the middle finger extended, forming a V. So this is it, this image here. So this is the rock, scissors, and paper. So rock, paper, scissors, rock, paper, scissors. And this is how the game goes. The rock will beat the scissors because the rock will break the scissors. If you try to cut a rock using scissors, then the scissors will get broken. Okay. Then scissors will beat paper. That is, if you try to stop a scissors using a paper, the paper will be cut by the scissors. And then the paper beats the rock because the paper will cover the rock. Yeah. So we've looked at all the concepts necessary, or all the topics necessary to build such a project. We've looked at if statements or conditional statements. We've looked at randomization, because you're playing against a computer. One, the user will be, you are the user playing against a computer. So the choices generated by the computer need to be random. Yeah. Because it's a two-person game. One person is you, the other person is the computer. So the choices that will be generated by the computer needs to be random. Yeah. And then yours, you need to enter an input. So you looked at the input function. So this is how it looks like. Let me open so this is how the game looks like. So I'm going to run it and it will ask you to play. So you need to choose a rock, paper, or scissors. So for me, let me play with rock. And then the computer chooses scissors and I win because the rock will crush the scissors. If I play again, then this time I choose paper. So remember, if I choose paper and the machine chooses rock, I win. If I choose paper and the machine chooses scissors, then the machine wins. And you can see computer wins because I chose paper and the computer chose scissors, so the computer wins. Play it again. This time I'm going to say scissors. Let's see who wins. Player wins. So I win 2 times. The computer wins once because I entered scissors. The computer chose paper and scissors beats paper. So the player wins. Okay, let's play it one last time. This time I'm going to say rock. And the computer wins because I said rock and the computer chose paper. And so the computer wins. But if we choose the same thing, then we need to be a draw. So let me see if we can get a draw. Yeah, this is a draw. The player chose rock, computer chose rock, so that is a draw. So you need to write such a program, and I'll be providing the walkthrough for that. So I'll give you tomorrow and Sunday. So I'll post the walkthrough for that project, maybe Sunday evening or Monday in the morning. So try it out, yeah? And give it your best. You have all the knowledge for that exercise. So it's up to you now. Any questions? So someone had asked where we are going to get the recording from. The recording will be posted. I'll post the link to the recording on the WhatsApp group. I normally post them on YouTube, so I'll share the link with you. Or you can just go to this YouTube channel and whenever the recording, the link for the recording for today's class will be ready maybe in the next few hours. But the walkthrough, I'll make that on Sunday or Monday. So you can go to this channel. And you can always check the recordings from there. And I'll also be posting them on WhatsApp. So you can go to the channel or use the link that I share. Okay, guys, so if you don't have questions, we shall do this again next week on Thursday. I'm not sure if we are going to cover enough ground before the course ends because we are finishing the course at the end of the month. The other course, the data science course.